This podcast is brought to you by M&S Food, where exceptional quality meets everyday inspiration. At M&S, they believe great food starts with great ingredients, from expertly sourced fresh produce from Ireland and around the world to chef-created dishes that make every meal feel special. So when they say this is not just food, they mean it. As a chef, I've always loved the M&S approach to food, from the sourcing to the standards. It's the kind of attention to detail that really matters in a kitchen. It's food made with purpose, and that's something I can get behind. I'm Mark Moriarty, and this is Roasted. Let's get into it. Welcome to Roasted with me, Mark Moriarty, where I chat with notable people, like the person in front of me, about their lives through the wonderful world of food and drink. Today's guest is radio and TV presenter Carl Mullan. Widely known for presenting the popular 2FM breakfast show, Carl has amassed over 500,000 followers across his various social media platforms, generally taking the state of day-to-day life. Carl, welcome to Roasted.
Yeah, thank you very much. I do have to set my stall out very early
Okay, let's
here.
do it.
Like, I'm probably the most underqualified person to be on this podcast you've ever had, just so we're clear.
That's a big statement. I've had some out there, people.
When it comes to food and me and my lack of knowledge, when it comes to food, I know what I like, but I'm definitely not well informed.
Well, I would argue with you because the first thing I will refer to is, as always in this podcast, we ask guests for a flavour or a dish that's taking their fancy at the moment. You sent through one of probably the second longest email after Dermot Bannon last season. And there were things mentioned like you have a thing for chicken thighs currently.
What an underrated cut of meat. That's what I will say. I hope you'll agree with me on that.
Onion sourdough.
Local market does an onion sourdough. Savage.
And molten sea salt.
So I got this one. Malden sea salt came from, we went on holidays with some mates last year.
This one kind of blew your cover.
One of the lads, he's like proper into his food, and he was like, you need to start using Malden sea salt.
Now, using salt isn't like being proper into your food. Surely that's a basic.
So the thing is, we never would have used salt growing up in the house. And Mum would have used like a table salt. Mum still would. She'd use like your big massive red and white container of salt.
Yeah.
She'd just be like sprinkling it over the food. So because of that, I always associated salt with being like an overpowering taste. So other than on like a bag of chips, I never would have had salt.
So did you just eat bland food for the last...
I must have, because now I feel like Salt Bay. I take the like Malden sea salt and I crumble it on like mashed potatoes. I'm like, this is really enhancing the flavours. And I think it's making it so much better, even though I don't know why. I just like the flavour of it, and it's just because it's salty. That's it.
Well, in front of you is a very simple dish, which we've been talking off air about this because you saw me upstairs prepping it. So we have red radishes sliced, soft salted butter, and Malden sea salt.
Oh, so we're going for the double salt
So what
here.
you do is, this is really classic French. It makes no sense at all, but it is quite delicious. So take a radish,
Okay.
put some butter on top of it with your spoon, and then get a good handful of Malden salt.
And to be honest with you, I nearly dipped without using the spoon there.
No, yeah, and then dip, yeah, and then go for it. So this is one of the simplest and best combinations out there. And while you chew away on it, I'll tee you up for your next question, which is going to be, what do you think?
Dinner guests or something? Or what was in my fridge?
You read the notes.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Oh, yeah. I'm a nerd when it comes to that kind of stuff.
I'm going to ask you about what you had in your childhood lunchbox growing up.
Oh, first of all, that is delicious.
Good, isn't it? I'm gonna have
Yes.
one because I don't have to talk too much in
And
this
sorry,
podcast.
do you know what that'd be a great one for? Like if people were coming over and it makes you look like you know what you're talking about.
Exactly. People are like, oh,
Yes.
you know the radish trick from France. Yes.
I am really going to start using that one. Yeah. People are, and then their expectations will be very, very high for the meal that will follow. What was in my lunchbox as a kid? We were fairly, it was always fairly plain and simple. I do always remember I loved a corned beef sandwich. We used to always get like a corned beef sandwich with like, you get a load of butter and corned beef on it, or even sometimes that billy roll stuff, the smiley face. Like I'm sure probably probably worse than eating plastic. So we used to sometimes get that. And then if it was like a Friday, sometimes we'd get those Dairy Lee Lunchables where it was like the breadsticks and like a soft cheese.
I remember them and you peel back the packet, wasn't it?
Yes, and it was such a treat to be able to get that. But it was generally like a sandwich and some form of a snack. I do remember in secondary school as well, I lived close enough to home that I could cycle back. I could be back in 10 minutes, and we used to get an hour of lunch. So Perrystown, the place that no one believes exists. But the big
like one
claim,
of those new dart stations.
The big claim to fame we have in Perrystown is that Niall Quinn came from Perrystown. So when you look up Perrystown on Wikipedia, that's who you'll find, is that Niall Quinn was from Perrystown. But I went to school in Templeogue College, so it was a 10-minute cycle home. And I got into this habit of like cycling home for lunch, and Mam being Mam, like to say that she would have like a spread on for me at home. It was, you know, you come home, she's like, I just cooked you pizza there, love, or I just like made this stew, or I just made this thing. I'd be rolling back into school, absolutely stuffed, falling asleep. And obviously, because I was getting fed like that every day, I started cycling home to get my lunch. So yeah, it was kind of a mixed bag, but definitely the secondary school days were the glory days.
Was she a good cook?
Mam was a good cook. I want to finish this piece off. Mam's a great cook, and it's real. It's your classic, like, she has a few dishes that she's perfected, and it's probably a case of I associate what she cooks with like nostalgia. That's why it's so delicious. It's so tied to like memories of her childhood, and you know, like the classic one is like, you know, when she does the Sunday roast. My wife now calls it like Mullan Sundays because she just associates, you know, going for a roast with my parents' house. And there was never like starters or anything like that. It was just, she'd do a roast with probably like 3 different variations of potatoes. And it was just absolutely savage. She used to always do a lasagna, which was great. I used to love that. What was the other one? She'd like have stuff ready for us when we get home, but she might have gone out to work or whatever like that. So there'd be a note left on the table for us. And she sometimes say like pizza in the oven, but she used to spell pizza Pitzza. Pizza. So yeah, no, Mam's a great cook, and I always love going home now, and you just get spoiled. And I don't know if anyone else does this when they go home. I default back into the first thing I do, open the fridge. Just see what's in the fridge, have a little nosy around the
Become
place.
a child again.
Oh, it's great. You know what I mean? Oh, here's some things that I didn't pay for. Yeah.
And you cook yourself?
I do cook, and funnily enough, I enjoy cooking. I just don't do enough of it. My issue is that I kind of associate cooking with being a huge process. Like if I'm cooking something, it has to be following a recipe and it has to take time. Whereas the reality is, when you're in a house, like particularly with us, like we've 3 young kids at the moment, it's like 3 under 3.5. It's a bit chaotic. So it just has to get done. And I don't know how many times I've said to, you know, my wife, actually like, oh, I'll cook. And I'm thinking I'm like the savior cooking for the first time in like, you know, 2 weeks. And after a while, she'd be like, Carl, like this just has to get done. Like you can't be following a recipe. Just get it done. So the only thing I'd really cook without a recipe would be a spaghetti bolognese. And I do that either as a veggie bolognese or as with meat, depending on what way we're feeling. And that's always really good money in the bank for me because it'll last across 2 days. So then therefore I feel absolutely brilliant. But I only recently started to realise that you can put, or that you're meant to put like bacon in it. So you kind of fry up the bacon beforehand and then you put the onions in and all of that. But I make a decent enough bolognese now, to be fair.
Splash of soy sauce at the end as well. So.
Soy sauce?
Yeah, splash soy. Now that you've discovered salt, you can move on to soy sauce. You can
well,
really start to up the levels.
Blowing my mind here.
What's a normal day look like for you? With obviously you're doing the breakfast show and you've 3 kids under 3.5, and wife and life and.
Do you know, it's funny now, like particularly with like the kids and then the early morning starts with the breakfast show. That's one thing I've struggled with over the last couple of years is that there's a thing in the industry and they call it the breakfast stone. And people always say like that a lot of people put on weight when they start a breakfast show. And it's because like your body clock is completely unregulated and you're reaching for sugar more because you might be tired. My issue is I was never a very good breakfast person. I was actually someone who I used to sometimes skip breakfast. And the mad thing was, I remember in my 20s, I went through a period where I got really fit and really healthy. And the biggest change I made was I started to eat breakfast. But what's happened to me since I started the breakfast show is that because like I'm up so early, like I've no want to eat. You might have a cup of coffee or something like that, but I'm not eating breakfast until after the show. So we come off air at 9 and we might have
What time do you get up at?
It's actually not as bad as people think. So we start at 6, but I'm up at 5.
Okay.
Because we prep everything the day before, and I have it down to a fine art now. I have everything laid out. Alarm goes off. I get changed, brush my teeth, out the door, and I'm in work in like 15 minutes. And there's never any traffic. Like, you know that if you leave the house 15 minutes later, you're going to arrive at work. So I'm in work for like 5:30, 20 to 6, you know, on a bad day. So it means then, like, I would kind of I would even prep my breakfast now. So I'd make an overnight oats and I might put a scoop of protein. It's pretty depressing, to be honest with you. But it's just like you finish the show and at least like you've something there ready to eat. But yeah, definitely, if I have to be disciplined about one thing, it's to try and have something there ready to go for after the show. Because what happens is, you finish doing the radio show and then you're kind of on the come down and then you're like ravenous. So the first thing you want to reach for is sugar or just something that you really shouldn't be having. And the big thing I notice is if I don't eat properly in the morning, I'll be fine. And I'm not going to be someone who'll, you know, get to lunchtime even and be like particularly hungry. It's the evening time where it'll come back to get me. So we'll be sitting down in front of the TV and it's like my brain is just on fire wanting sugar. So that's where like I really need to manage it with myself, is to try and eat in the mornings as much as I can.
Do you say the come down from live radio? So you're doing live radio now for how many years? Like, you still get that rush?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because like, it's kind of funny, like with live radio in particular, you know, because like you'd have callers on the air and you have to be on alert. Like someone could, without realising it, say something that they shouldn't say, or like you might say something that might come across to people as like offensive, or you can walk yourself into a hole without realising you've done it. So you have to always be switched on. And oftentimes as well, like say with the breakfast show, you know what I mean? It's very formatted and we know what items we do at what time. But then there's other parts of the show that are really open-ended, and it's so dynamic that like during the show you might have a plan to talk about one thing, but then something pops off in a text message and you're like, you know, let's go with this. So it means then you're going into an item and you're not really prepped for it. You just have to go with it and use your gut. So
do any sticky situations stand out that you've fallen into these holes?
I've sworn on air before.
Okay. So what happens there? You
just have to apologise for it. Like, see, the first time I ever swore on air was actually during lockdown, and they had set us up with technology where like one of us would broadcast from studio and one of us would broadcast at home. The little box called a tie line, you plug it into the internet. And so I was there sitting presenting the show beside the clothes horse, you know, and I'm there chatting away. But because I was out of the professional environment, it was like the guard was down. And I remember I was talking about YouTube and like the random YouTube rabbit holes you go down. And I was Africa O'Connell I was presenting with at the time, and I just said, you know, like, you know the way you go onto YouTube and before you know it, you're down a fucking rabbit hole. And then she was like, Carl. And I was like, oh no, I'm so sorry. But
8 o'clock in the morning.
Something like that, people know it's genuine. So actually the funny thing is you're not worried about like, oh, like, is my job on the line here? People know it's genuine. It'd be more if, you know, another one I had was, we thought the mics were down and they were still up. And I was wearing like a really warm hoodie. And for whatever reason, hadn't taken it off. And I just screamed out, it's so been warm. And it went out on air. And like, again, complete mistake, you know. But you have to be completely switched on, because I suppose there's probably an element of like the culture we live in today. Everything's replayable. You know, everyone can reanalyze what you've said or what you've done. So you are kind of worried about like, I need to make sure like if I'm saying something that it's not something that's going to come back to bite me, you know?
Then you get home from work and obviously a young family. How do you balance all of that? Like that's a long day and a lot going on.
I don't know if we do realistically. I think we're in a bit of a survival period right now. I think it is genuinely so chaotic that we've just surrendered to that. We try our best to be organised, and all of the organisation in our house comes from my wife, Aisling. Thank God for Ash. Like, she's a nurse. She's very process driven. She's, I wreck her head because I can't think of anything past 2 hours from now. I genuinely can't do it. I have to be really disciplined, even if like someone asks to meet me, or if there's an event happening, I have to take my phone out there and then and put it in the calendar, because otherwise it's gone. It's gone into oblivion. So like, in terms of us, say when it comes to food, we would try and sometimes cook things that'll last for 2 nights, so that at least, one of the nights it's not as bad. Or like, again, just communicating with each other. Like, sometimes Ash will be like, look, can you do the dinner tonight? And you need to think about, look what's in the fridge.
There's a lot to be said for just talking it out.
Like, and like, I'm terrible. Like, I'll say, like, I'm going to cook dinner tonight. But for me, cooking dinner tonight means I have to go down to the supermarket and buy all of the ingredients that I need. And I'll go and I'll buy onions and I'll buy carrots and I'll buy this, that and the other. And Ash is like, they're literally all at home. Like, why did you go and buy them? Because I'm like, well, I had to start from scratch because I didn't know. I don't even look in the fridge, you know what I mean? I've often thought to myself, like, now with AI, you can ask it to like give you recipes based off what's in your fridge. I'm like, that could maybe come in easy for me.
Put me out of a job.
Yeah.
This episode of Roasted is brought to you by M&S Food. M&S work with the best producers from Ireland and beyond to bring real quality to your table. But they're also the home of dine-in. Now, I'm a chef, but sometimes I don't have time to cook dinner every single night. So I love nothing more than calling into the local M&S, picking up a restaurant quality meal and enjoying it home. That, for me, is the magic of M&S. Tell me then, did you always know you were going to be on radio and media?
I probably deep down knew I wanted to do it, but I was afraid to say it out loud. It was a funny one. Like, when we were kids growing up, myself and my sisters, I'd love to find the tapes, but I remember we used to make radio shows ourselves at home where we'd, get the tape recorder and it'd have 2 sides. So on one tape you were recording, on the other tape you're playing out. I remember, I used to have U2, All That You Can't Leave Behind on tape. So we play the songs from that, but between songs we come in and like record links. So we were doing it from a young age, and then we had like, a video camera as well, and we used to make like pretend ads and do all of these different things. But then I went to college and I did a media degree, and for whatever reason, when I was in my like early 20s, I kept telling people like, oh no, I've no interest in being on air. I just want to do behind the scenes stuff. Even though I knew inside I did want to do the on air stuff, but I was afraid that by saying that out loud, it'd make me seem cocky or big headed, or like I had this massive ego.
Is that an Irish thing?
Totally. And it just afraid of what other people would say or what other people would think. And then it just got to a stage where I remember thinking to myself, like, no, nobody cares. Literally nobody cares except for you. And also, like, yeah, of course there's a bit of ego involved with doing this job. That's actually all right. As long as you're still like a decent person at the end of the day and you're looking after the people who, mean the most to you, it's all right for you to say you want to be a radio presenter or you want to, do this, that or the other. So I started, I was just coming on 25. And that's when I was like, right, I need to give this a go. So I remember I started putting myself forward to work on the digital radio stations first. That was the first thing I did, and did demos for those and did a few shows for the digital radio stations. And then the next step up was to start asking 2FM, like, can I do Christmas cover? So I eventually, after annoying them for a while, got Christmas cover. And I remember it was St. Stephen's Day 2014. I got my first cover show, and it was 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. And I was so nervous. I came into work at 4:00 that morning, and I pre-recorded my first link so that at least it would sound really slick. So I pre-recorded the first link. It turned 7:00, and what you do in the 2FM studios is we have 2 studios, and one studio is always live and then the other studio is off. So that, if people need to pre-record stuff or whatever, there's always a studio you can use and it doesn't go out on air. How you put a studio on the air is it's a physical key, and they call it keying on the studio. So you just switch a switch, and then anything you say, it is now going out on FM radio. I forgot to key on the studio for my first show.
It's just you in there by yourself.
Just me in there on my own. Had pre-recorded my first link, ready to go, wanted this to sound incredible. And I hit play on the system with this pre-recorded link and it was playing, but there was nothing going out on air. And I'm in a panic going, oh my God, what the hell is going on? But the problem is then there's all these backup systems. So after about 15 seconds, there's a silence detector so that if for whatever reason someone doesn't turn up for their shift or something's gone wrong and a computer crashes, a backup system kicks in, it starts to play music. So the backup kicked in, but when the backup kicks in, that texts all your bosses to let them know the station is off the air. So in my very, very first show on 2FM, I kick in the backup.
On Stevens' day morning.
All the bosses are getting a text to say, put the station off the air. And I remember thinking the whole way through the show, eventually when I got back on air, I was like, well, that's it. I've screwed it for myself. And then I remember my boss, a lovely man called Paul Russell, he rang me after the show and I genuinely saw Paul's number ringing me and I was like, here we go, I'm about to get an absolute bollocking here. And he didn't even say hello. He just himself laughing down the phone. He just was like, I can't believe that's what after happening. And apparently it's actually a rite of passage for everyone. Everyone forgets to key on the studio at some point or has some form of a balls up like that. So they were so good and they were so supportive in that way. Like he was like, don't be worrying about it. Like mistakes happen. We're not doing brain surgery. It's fine. And from there it was just like, doing a bit of cover. And then I always remember listening to an interview that Louise McSharry gave. And I remember her saying for a long time, she felt like the opportunities would come find her. And she had a moment of clarity at one stage where she realised, like, no, they won't. Like, I have to go banging down the door looking for the opportunities. And I had been that guy for a long time. I felt like if you turn up, you do the cover, you do the job, you're diligent in what you do, the bigger opportunities will come and find you.
Because you deserve them.
Whereas actually, particularly in an industry like radio, like you have to show that like you want it and you have to show that you're hungry because there's another million other people who want your job or who think that they could do your job better than them. So when that clicked, I remember thinking, right, I need to start kicking down the door here. And then an opportunity came up for 2FM breakfast. And that was always the job I wanted, was breakfast. Because what got me into radio was I used to listen to the Strawberry Alarm Clock with, it was Colin and Jim at the time.
Going to school.
Yeah. And I adored that show. I still listen back to some of the sketches. Like the two lads were just brilliant. And that was what got me into really wanting to be on the radio. And I remember the opportunity came up for 2FM and I was like, right, I'm putting everything into this. And if I get the opportunity, brilliant. And if I don't, I think it's time to park the radio dream. Because at that stage, Ash was pregnant with her first child, Davy. And I kind of knew, I was like, right, you can't keep chasing this dream and working loads of hours and, it's kind of a selfish gig to want to get. You have to become a bit selfish.
Becoming a parent really knocks that out of you.
Totally. So I just was like, right, I'm going to give this everything. And if I don't get it, I'll probably park the radio thing, if not forever, but definitely for a while. And I remember I recorded a video for the bosses, essentially telling them why I deserved the job. And I remember thinking, like, this will either make or break me, And it was essentially like a YouTube style vlog where I did this video and I was like, we need to talk. And I went through all the reasons why I felt I was the right person for the job.
Is this you sitting in a room at the other end of the video?
Me sitting at home, like talking to the camera. And I remember I hit send and I was like, oh my God, is this going to be so damaging that like I never recover from this? Like either they'll love this or they'll be like, this guy has lost his mind. And anyway, I did pilots for the breakfast show and a few weeks had gone by and then my phone rang and it was a producer in 2FM called Grace, an absolutely brilliant person. And has been always just so good to me and so supportive in terms of like coming up through the ranks and stuff. And she rang me and I was like, here we go. Like, this is the moment. And she was like, hi, how's it going, Carl? And I was like, hey, what's the story? And she goes, listen, I just wanted to ring you to let you know you're the new 2FM breakfast presenter. And she absolutely lost her mind on the other end of the phone. And it was just such an out of body experience because I fully was expecting not only to be told no, I nearly was expecting to like have the row with them of like, well, I'm done. That's fine. If you don't want me, then I'm done. See you later. And then there I am, and I got the gig, and it was just an amazing moment. So it's been a wild few years. Like since that happened, so much has happened professionally and personally. So much so that I kind of worry that I'll look back on this period and maybe go, you didn't take that in as much as you should have, or you didn't appreciate it as much as you should have.
It's not possible sometimes because you're on the train.
Totally. And there's so much bandwidth taken up with, like, kids and being in survival mode and lack of sleep and all of that. And listen, every parent's done it. It's not a case of being like, poor me. It's just, it has to be done.
How did you change from when you became a parent?
Do you know what's funny? Like, I don't think the change happened straight away. I think I had to. I was pretty shell shocked for the first while. We both were, myself and Ash, and we were getting ready to get married as well at the time. And I remember, when Davey was born, I always remember thinking, I thought from what I had seen on TV or what I'd heard, I thought I was going to be like punched in the gut with these feelings of love, and it would just take over. And I remember for the first few months being like, why am I not feeling this? It was a strange feeling because I felt guilty about it. I was like, why do I not feel like I love this child? And of course, like, even now saying that out loud, I'm like, oh God, I hope if he ever heard that, he wouldn't think that I didn't love him. And of course it's not that. But it's that you're in this such a state of flux and shock that you're kind of in survival mode. And with me, it was a case of, okay, I need to shift how I think, because now everything I do is for our family. It's not just for me. So what you say yes to, does this benefit us from a financial perspective? Can I take on this job, or is it going to pull me out of the house for too much time, or is the juice worth the squeeze? Or everything then starts to be funneled into this perspective of like, okay, well, I don't say yes to this as Carl, I say yes to this as dad. So that was the big shift that came for me. And then I think when I settled into like the whole idea of like, oh right, okay, like this is, you're now a parent, and like you're no longer the most important person in the room. That's when I surrendered to that, that's when the love started to hit. You know what I mean? Because there's a huge, like, I'm sure you're finding at the moment, like you've a young baby at home, and like I genuinely mourned the loss of my previous self, because you say goodbye to, a whole personality that you would have had, and it does change it, because you can no longer go out and say, I'm going to ring the lads and go for a game of golf, or I'm going to ring the lads and go for a drink, or let's do this, or let's book a weekend away. That's gone. And I think for us as well, because it all aligned with COVID, like we went into COVID as 30-year-olds, and we were at that lovely stage where like we had a bit of money that we could spend and do whatever we wanted. Then the world locked down, and then we came out of it, and we were parents, and it was like, this is a very different world from what I remember when it all locked down. So there was a huge shift, but like it's the greatest thing. Like,
I think you described it incredibly well there.
Really sorry, I went off on a tangent there.
Complete sense, yeah.
Okay,
even
I'm glad
for me,
it does.
I was like, yeah, no, that makes 100% sense. Particularly the decision making.
Yeah,
that's the biggest decision.
What's weird about parenthood, I find, is that any parent explaining to a person who doesn't have kids what parenthood is like makes it sound like hell. But at the end of it, you're like, but it's class.
Yeah.
And you can't really ever quantify why, or you can't explain it to someone else unless they've been in that situation, because it's the small moments you have during the day, you know what I mean? Where like, I was just like, it's so silly, but like our little fella Davey, I sat having a chat with him while he was sitting on the toilet the other day. It was just like, it was the most pure, innocent, beautiful moment while he's sitting on the jacks. And I just was saying to Ash, was like, it actually gave me I felt so full after it, because it was just the innocence of him, you know what I mean? And it's little things like that. You're going, oh, like this is better than any job that you do or any kind of, you know, money you could make. You can't put a price on that.
Take me back to when you met your wife, Ash. You've been going out a long while now, or is it?
We've been going out 9 years this year, but we know each other a lot longer than that.
Okay, so tell me that.
We know each other since I was in 6th class. So that
Sixth class?
I was in 6th class when I first met Ash. So that was about 2002, because I remember Ireland were playing in the World Cup in Saipan. So it was around then. And I had a friend who lived across the road from my mum and dad's house, Sarah. And I used to hang around with Sarah and sometimes with her brother. And I was that day hanging out with Sarah's brother. And Sarah came cycling along on her bike and she had a friend with her, and it was Ash. And I swear to God, even at that age, I was 11 or 12, I swear to God, I instantly fell in love with her. I know that sounds so cheesy, and I know that sounds like it's completely made up. You can ask any of my friends. From that moment, I was like, I'm in love with her. It sounded like a weirdo. But I remember, like, you know, I remember playing rounders a couple of weeks later, and then it was at the stage where, like, after our confirmations, everyone had just got their first phone. So I remember getting her number, and like we used to do a lot of travelling up and down to Derry. All my dad's family are from Derry. So we'd be in the car travelling to Derry, and I remember texting her, and you'd always at the end of a text put WB right back. And I'd be like sitting in the car waiting for her to text back, and then she'd text back, and I'd be buzzing, she'd text back. And we were good mates. Like we had a really lovely group of friends growing up who I'm still really tight with, thankfully, and like loads of kids have come along, and you know our lives have changed in that sense. But because we were all that group of friends, myself and Ash were around each other all the time, and there was always the, like, you know, oh, do they like each other? Don't they like each other? And you know, nothing ever happened until we were in our late teens, and I think like we kissed each other, and then I think Ash was like, "Oh, I'm freaked out with this," because you know we were good mates, and I think, well, she proper friend zoned me for a while. I was palmed off for a good while, but it's gas now that we're that bit older. She'd even often say, like, you know, I needed to be in other relationships to kind of understand that I loved you. You know, like we did genuinely love each other because we were really close, but it was, when you're figuring everything out, it was like
kids.
We were kids, exactly, you know. So
you were banging down the door like in The Job before it.
Totally, exactly. And the talk about coming on too strong. So I'd say I freaked her out, you know what I mean? But, you know, it's had we got with each other when we were young, we wouldn't have stayed together, you know what I mean? So I'm so glad it worked out the way it did. And then we kind of had drifted apart. She moved to London, and we went on a holiday together with all of our friends, and we kind of reconnected on that holiday. And, you know, that's not even when we got together or anything like that. It was just kind of spending that time with each other. And I remember us kind of feeling like, okay, there's definitely something more here. Okay. But then talk about, you know, me being a bit more direct. I remember after the holiday being like, I feel like there's something here. And we went out for a drink one night, just, you know, post holiday. And I remember just chatting to him, and I just said, like, am I getting a feeling here? And she burst out crying. She's like, yes. And that was it.
That was your first date.
Yeah, that was it. Like, but it was funny because, like, it was strange for myself and Ash. Like, we knew if we were going to go into a relationship, because we knew each other so long, we skipped all of the, like, we skipped probably 3 or 4 years of a serious relationship. So we knew if we got with each other, it was serious. It was either we went into the relationship and it ended, and that was the end of our contact with each other, you know what I mean? Or we went into the relationship and it was getting married and having kids, and, you know, luckily that's how it worked out.
You mentioned, I wanted to ask you mentioned about the phone, and obviously you've got this huge social media platform and the videos, which are very, very funny. You've had some huge, and that's the world we live in now, like videos that have gone viral, that get huge publicity. But obviously there's a double-edged sword to that.
Yeah. And
you've used it to sort of build yourself, as I have, and a lot of people kind of have to now. But do you enjoy social media?
I do really love it. Now, I love the nice end of it. I think particularly there's something about the world we're living in at the moment. It's like everyone's so angry. Like it just, you turn on your phone or you turn on the news and it's, obviously look, there's horrible stuff going on around the world, but it's like that's now infiltrating like everyone's timelines. And because of how algorithms work, if you get angry about something or if you watch something and even if you disagree with what the person is saying, you can't help but keep your eyes off it. So what happens? The algorithm feeds you more of it. So I do find like there's certain social media platforms that I'm like, oh, I have to really pick and choose the days that I want to go onto it, because genuinely, like, you put stuff up and you're like going, okay, I know I'm going to get absolutely rinsed here. And that's part and parcel of it. And, you know, you just have to take that. And for the most part, you're like, yeah, whatever. Like, especially if you're getting so rinsed for no reason, you're like, okay, this is just people who enjoy trolling. You know?
That's because you're pretty confident and good at what you do. But yeah, there's other people who are looking at that stuff a lot of the time and they're not that confident. Yeah,
and it's funny, like, even in terms of the confidence thing, like, I probably come across a lot more confident than I actually am, because, like, I'm getting ready to hit upload on stuff and I'm like, this isn't funny. Or I'm like, this is terrible, or you're becoming irrelevant, or you're having all these different doubts about yourself. And the truth of it is like, I hit upload on anything and yeah, loads of people are going to see it. I'm like, this isn't funny. Like, what the hell is this guy at? But then there is people who find it funny, and it's all just so subjective. But unfortunately, with the internet, everyone also gets an opinion. You know what I mean? And I've no problem with people who don't like what I do, or it's same with anyone. But like, I kind of think like we can scroll past. You know what I mean? I'm not like making highly political statements. I'm just making jokes about the teachers going on holidays, or making, you know, some stupid worn out joke that I've made a million different times. But if it makes one person laugh, brilliant. You know what I mean? I get gorgeous messages from people on the other end side of things, and saying to, you know, I met a lady there at the weekend, and she was telling me about how a few years ago her son was involved in a car accident and acquired a brain injury. And she was like, it was a really, really difficult time. And like, just your videos, it was just a bit of relief, and it was so lovely. And she kind of came up to me, she was like, just thank you so much. And I was like, whoa, like you don't think that hit an upload? No, you absolutely don't. So you have to remind yourself of that stuff. There's always going to be people who don't like you. I'm still trying to get better at growing that thick skin, because there's always going to be people who don't like you, but then there's also loads of people who do. And it's just a case of like, look, you take the good with the bad, you know? 4 people at a dinner table. Who are your 4 dream guests? This is the one I really was struggling with thinking about. I bet you this is going to be such a boring answer, because people are like, oh my God. No such thing as boring. It's just a different point of view. Okay, I'm going to start off with the one person who I always would have said straight off the bat was Eddie Jordan, who only passed away a couple of months ago. So I am a massive Formula One fan, but growing up I was obsessed with the Jordan Formula One team. So for anyone who's Where did that come not from? Interested, I think it was probably the timing of like, so the Jordan Formula One team, they were an Irish Formula One team. They raced under the Irish flag. Eddie Jordan was the owner. He was a proud Irishman, you know. To have an Irish F1 team, for me, I remember being 8 or 9. They won their first race in 1998. So I think that's when I got into them. I think I remember just being like, oh, what's this? There's an Irish car racing team. And then I just started watching it. And then by the 1999 season, I was hooked. And that happened to coincide with Jordan were really good that year, and they were in the hunt for the championship for a long time. Up in the middle of the night and everything sort of thing? Oh, I was myself. It's actually, I have gorgeous memories of me and my dad, because in 1999, the Jordan F1 team were doing really well, but Eddie Irvine as well, he was in the hunt for the championship right until the very last race. And I remember like being up at 4 o'clock in the morning with my dad, sitting in my bed watching on a tiny little TV screen the Japanese Grand Prix. So Eddie Jordan was always someone who I would have said I wanted to sit down with him and just ask him about, like, you know, the world of Formula One and how they scrape by. Because what was remarkable about the Jordan F1 team was they weren't a huge manufacturer like a Ferrari or a Mercedes. They were underdogs. They were total underdogs. And this was a guy who had to, you know, buy and sell and pull the wool over everyone's eyes to like get to where they got to. And it was just remarkable what they did. So I just think he would have been a great character. And I was so was so genuinely sad when Eddie Jordan died. To the point where I rang my dad and I burst into tears. This is only a few months ago. And it was more because Dad was really good when I was, Mum and Dad, but when I was that age, like they knew how much I loved F1 and the Jordan F1 team. And I remember Dad brought me to a race with the Jordan F1 fan club. And now, being a dad, I'm like going, like, that came with a lot of costs. That came with him having to take off time from work. And he did it for me because he knew I loved it. So I actually rang him and I was like, I don't know if I ever told you this when I was a kid, but like, thank you so much because it's one of my favourite memories. And that all came off the back of Eddie Jordan passing away. So he definitely would have been someone I would have liked.
It's a beautiful story, by the way, actually, yeah.
But yeah, and it's, you know, it's again, just when you come back to the dad thing, that's something that's changed to me. I probably try to be a bit more vocal with my parents about the things I appreciate from them, because it's only now you realise, like, God, there's so many things they did for us. You know what I mean? They were great parents. And I'm like, I probably should tell them, you know what I mean? So they understand it. Yeah, yeah. And it's funny because, like, Mum and Dad, they don't want to hear it, like, you know what I mean?
Real Irish.
They've done their job.
Grand. Yeah, thank
you. Other people then who I'd like at the dinner table.
You've got 3 seats left.
Okay. Okay, another one would be Charlie Borman. So, okay, you're nodding your head, so you must know where this is going.
Long way round, long way down.
Yes. So, if anyone's ever seen the series Long Way Round, Long Way Down, Long Way Up, Long Way Home.
Unbelievable series.
Amazing. So, it's Charlie Borman and Ewan McGregor, 2 mates, and they go around the world on motorbikes. Look, if you're going to watch one of them, watch the original Long Way Round. It's incredible. The two of them.
I love when they go through those parts. I'm fascinated with those parts of Asia, like when they go into the stands and up through Siberia, and you're like, I'm never going to be here. It's
amazing. And I think for me, like, what attracts me to that series is like the whole idea of like just the escapism of it. Because I think it's so hard now to, like, especially with our phones, you can't get away from anything. Whereas to like put yourself in a situation where the only important thing is like, how far can we travel today? So the two of them travel around the world on 2 motorbikes and
supporting each other.
Yeah, and it's just a lovely, like, you know, it's about their friendship and it's about the adventure and the people they meet along the way. And if I was to like say like what would be my dream job, that would be it. To make a series like that, that'd be the dream job. So definitely Charlie Borman. I've met him before and he was a lovely man, but I love to sit down and ask him about, like, you know, all the things that like happened when the cameras weren't rolling, or just talk to him about motorbikes, or talk to him about, you know, he did the Dakar rally and he did loads of different things as well. So definitely Charlie Borman. Then from a family point of view, my granddad Mullan, so my dad's dad, because he passed away before I was born. And I was lucky I had my other 3 grandparents until, like, you know, I was old enough to get to know them anyway. And like they're all gone now. But my granddad Mullan, everyone always says how similar I am to him. So like my obsession with cars, like that didn't come from my dad. My dad has no interest in cars. Whereas my granddad Mullan, he was like, you know, they used to essentially force the kids into the back of the car and he'd go bring them to a rally and they'd watch the rallies and have lunch.
He was Derry, was he?
Derry,
so
yeah.
Big rally country.
Exactly. They go to Donegal and they go and watch the rally, and he used to always be out, like, you know, polishing his car, and he was obsessed with cars. So I'd love to meet my granddad Mullan and chat to him. And then...
So far, you have the guts of a good Formula 1 team.
Yeah. It's actually very motorsports, driven.
That's why I asked the question, though, because it's a real insight into you.
And in fairness, like, I adore it. If I was to try and get into another industry, that would be one of them. Another thing, I'm a bit obsessed with aviation, and I actually don't know where this one came from. I'm just like a bit. So we call ourselves aerosexuals.
Please explain.
So I'm one of those lads who, like, I'll sit at the side of the runway and I'll watch the planes taking off and landing.
Well, I'll happily say here that me too. If I wasn't a chef, I wanted to be a pilot.
Okay, because I wanted to be a pilot when I was in school, and then it was, I don't know why, I kind of just was like, I'd heard it was very expensive, and then I wasn't very good at maths, so I kind of talked myself out of it.
But the salaries are great. Yes. I know a few pilots.
I genuinely, like, I still to this day consider, would it be too late for me if I decided I wanted to pivot? If I was going to pivot into something else, it'd be aviation related, 100%.
You didn't get that call for the breakfast show. You'd
They-
be out in Dublin Airport right now.
100%. And you know the way they always say, like, you know, people do a certain amount of time with different jobs. And now listen, I've no want yet to like give up breakfast. I love it. But if I ever got that hankering, I'm like, oh God, I wonder would you ever like just have that moment where you're like, I want to do something different.
Yeah.
But if I was going to do that, it'd be something aviation related. So I think
I'm excited who this is going to be.
I think it'd be someone like your man who landed the plane on the Hudson.
Sully.
Sully. Yeah. Just to, again, talk aviation, be an absolute nerd, you know.
Also handy in this Formula 1 team that you've put together.
Exactly, yeah. We're all very engineering
Yes.
related, yeah. So I'm sure I'll leave this conversation and go, oh, that would have been a much better person. Or think of all these other different people through history who'd be better to have at the dinner table.
Yeah, but we get a real sense of who you are from that.
Yeah.
And the last question I'd ask you, I suppose it's related. Your death row meal. So these 4 people and yourself, what are you eating? Starter, main, dessert.
See, this is a controversial one now because there's mother-in-laws and my own mother involved in this. So
Just tread carefully. Make sure you've got salt on the table.
Yeah, okay. Make sure we salt on the table. And then for okay. For the starter, I'm going with French onion soup.
Nice. Love it.
So if ever we go out for dinner and there's French onion soup on the menu, non-negotiable, I'm ordering it.
Very rarely you see it as well.
See, that's exactly.
Yeah.
And it's what an underrated soup. It's so good. Do you know what I love? I went traveling in South America when I was in college. I was about 21 at the time. And we did like Brazil, Argentina, Peru, Bolivia, and Chile. It was over like a full summer. Amazing holiday, amazing adventure. And one thing that I noticed when we were there, obsessed with French onion soup. Everywhere we went, it was on the menu. So to say for like 3 months straight, I was eating French onion soup the entire time. So definitely French onion soup. And there's no one in my family makes that. I just love it. Then for the main, okay. So it'd be a fight to the death between my mum's Christmas dinner, which would be like, you know, the turkey, the ham, the stuffing. A dry stuffing, by the way, that she does. I had never heard of meat stuffing until I started going out with Ash. They do a meat stuffing, but it'd be a dry stuffing. She does mushy marrow fat peas that she soaks the night before. Doesn't buy that non-soak stuff. Do you know what I mean? She proper soaks them. There's about 4 different varieties of potatoes. I remember recently we had Christmas dinner and I genuinely was sad at the end of it because it was so good. I was like, that's it for another year.
Don't be sorry it ended. Be glad it happened.
It's either that from Mam or Ash's Mam does a pasta bake. And it's a pasta bake with chicken and broccoli and like a sauce out of a jar, right? And like when I say tons of cheese. And it's like just, again, your daily basics, like, you know, sprinkle the cheese on top of it, nothing fancy. It's sensational. And she's one of those moms as well. She puts out the dinner and she'd be like, Carl, you don't have enough. Meanwhile, I can't see over the plate. You know what I mean? But I absolutely love when she makes pasta bake.
Now, this question's a set menu, so you have to pick one of them. You can't have either or, so sorry.
Look, I'll have for pure nostalgia's sake, I'm picking Mam's Christmas dinner.
There we go.
All right,
Christmas
just so I can
is.
cross the threshold. And then for dessert, this is another one that causes fights between our 2 families. And I'm picking Mam's trifle. Again, going back to Christmas dinner. Now, this is where
a heavy meal.
This is where, yeah, no, yeah. But look, so if we're going out, we're going out in a high. I need your opinion on this. So my mum, when she makes trifle, puts banana in it. And people, oh, guys, yeah, don't like that face. Your team, no banana.
Wow.
So we always have banana in our trifle.
Thought so highly of your mum up to
the sherry kind of tends to keep it relatively fresh. So we have the banana in the trifle, and then you get like, again, none of this making your own custard. It's like the carton of custard and the carton of cream, and you just lash them on top. Oh my God, absolutely love it. So yeah, Mam's trifle, 100%. That's what we're going out on.
Carl Mullan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. If you liked what Carl had to say, you can like and subscribe, leave a review of the podcast, or simply tell a friend. It makes such a difference to get people listening to Roasted. You can also watch our full conversation on YouTube. And I will see you again soon.